Hi, I'm just back from seeing Ghostbusters Afterlife. It's the long-awaited third Ghostbusters film in the original continuity, ignoring the 2016 remake. And it follows a group of a family who move to a house they've inherited in the middle of the Oklahoma farmland. And it turns out that there's all kinds of strange things going on there. I'm skipping through this because it's really not important. This film is fucking terrible. Um, it the script is a joke. There is such an over reliance all the way through on goodwill from the original film. The music is lifted almost directly from Elmer Bernstein's original score. There are constant references to the original film. Even from the very first shot, we can see where the story's going because there are visual references to events from the original film. As the film goes on, and the young kids discover that they are, in fact, the uh, grandchildren of Egon Spengler, who's recently died and went out to the wilderness to fight one final battle against Gozer the Destroyer, the villain from the first film. Um, it's just repeating the same beats over and over again with very little variation. The original film, of course, was a comedy, and it grew out of Saturday Night Live. The original the central teaming was going to be Jim Belushi and Dan Aykroyd from the Blues Brothers. So it's a comedy, and Ghostbusters 2 is a comedy, and the remake is a comedy. This isn't a comedy. This has some very weak, laboured attempts at humour, but they are few and far between. It's mostly a straight science fantasy adventure um, with a tone and style ripped off from Stranger Things, which is infinitely better. Um, the direction is appalling. There are scenes that cut randomly across all the set. There's a scene where a character's playing chess with a ghost where you can't really understand what's going on because it keeps cutting back and forth across the line, which is the most basic directorial technique that you learn. The editing is terrible. There's very, very obvious, huge chunks of the movie that have been cut and papered over with voiceover. There are gaps in the story. Characters that go from being completely disbelieving to being totally believing in ghosts within a few moments. It's just completely. It's an absolute mess. It's a really really abject, piss poor piece of work that skates by solely on goodwill from the original film. This is the film that the people who complained about the 2016 reboot wanted to see. They didn't want to see something that was fresh and original. They certainly didn't want to see something with a lot of girls, even though this has a girl in its main role, and she is not good. Mckenna Grace, whose character is this sort of science rocks type that we've seen before in Star Trek Discovery, the kind of idiotic, imbecilic stereotype which has no basis in reality, and characters say all this. Oh yes, science is so great. There is never any kind of explanation or um, examination of that kind of attitude. It's not even character work. It's just something to say in place of having a personality. Her brother, played by Finn Wolfhard, is basically a total blank slate. Their mother, played by Carrie Coon, is a total blank slate. Paul Rudd is totally wasted in what's supposed to be a funny character, but he's sleepwalking his way through it. He chose this over doing Halloween Kills, where he would have had the Anthony Michael Hall role, which he'd actually the child babysat by Jamie Lee Curtis's character in the original film. He played an adult version of that character in Halloween 6 and was asked to come back for Halloween Kills. He turned it down to do this. Halloween Kills would have stretched a bit. It's a serious role, quite a dark toned character leading a lynch mob across town. Instead, he's just taking the money and running with this absolutely terrible, shoddy, poorly made, just pathetic excuse for a feature film. To go into much more detail, I need to go into spoilers. So the rest of this is spoilers. Don't go and see the movie. It's shit. At the end of the film, the original Ghostbusters turn up again. We've had a cameo by Annie Potts as Janine Malnitz early on. Dan Aykroyd as Ray Stantz halfway through, and then the original three surviving Ghostbusters come back at the end and are joined by the ghost of Egon Spengler, played by some CGI. And although it's admittedly actually quite good CGI and surprisingly lifelike, that and the dedication to Harold Ramis before the end credits is such an insult that they think that they have done something that he would have approved. The director of Caddyshack and Vacation, the co-writer and basically co-creator of Ghostbusters, would have approved of this total shambles, this incoherent farrago is ridiculous. There are two scenes within the end credits themselves. One is to give Sigourney Weaver her half day on set. And see, that's already complaints pouring in. And the other is an incredibly long, unnecessarily wordy setup for a potential further film, which there won't be because it's predicted not to do particularly well at the box office. It won't do well outside the US. It's getting terrible reviews from serious critics. If you look at Rotten Tomatoes, it's just below the 2016 film for critics in general. But for the top critics, it's less than 40%. This is a massive dud. So there's little more that I can say. It's absolutely awful. The script is a mess. The acting is weak. The direction is terrible. The editing is incoherent. The fan service is just slathered all over it to make up for any deficiencies anywhere else in the film. It is absolutely awful. It's the worst film I've seen this year, and there is no excuse for this kind of shit to be shown in British cinemas or anywhere else in the world.